Hello and welcome to this edition of Top of Mind Florida. I'm Michael Williams.
And I'm Brian Crowley, continuing to wonder why Michael insists on having his seat up higher than mine.
Oh, or perhaps you being shorter than me. But tall in stature, as always. We are joined by a familiar face to many of you, especially if you ride Tri-Rail in the South Florida community. Steve Abrams, former Palm Beach County Commissioner, former Tri-Rail Executive Director, now with Ellison Partners, still with transportation very much uppermost in your mind. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Michael.
What's going on with Tri-Rail? We know it's not good with budgets. Tell us what's going on. And first of all, for those of you watching, we're going to talk Tri-Rail in South Florida, but this could easily be mass transit anywhere you live in Florida and beyond. What's going on?
Well, they're at a real standoff. And this has been some time in the making. Tri-Rail has always been funded through a state statute, and the state statute has a specific amount that the state is obligated to provide to Tri-Rail in addition to the funds that the three counties provide.
Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County,
correct.
For our statewide listeners.
And so there's some benefits to that, namely that there's a identified source of funding, and that Tri-Rail can then enter into long-term contracts with their private sector operator, their security firm, and other contracts. The downside, however, is that it's not subject to yearly appropriations, and so over time, that figure has eroded, and that has created a shortfall. When I took over as executive director in 2018, we immediately started to address that. We cut the budget by over $16 million. We increased fares. We established an investment policy so that we could gain some interest on our funds, a whole variety of things. And even more importantly than that, we started discussions with the three counties individually and collectively, as well as FDOT individually, and then brought everybody together at a big summit with the Secretary of Transportation, the top administrators from the three counties, to establish a framework to get out of this impending hole. Then, of course, COVID occurred. So at that point, we had to, just struggle to keep operating, although Tri-Rail did come out of COVID with the quickest return to full ridership of any commuter rail in the country, except for, I think, Denver. But in any event, we were then able to draw down upwards of $265 million of federal COVID relief funds. So at that point, it was a little hard to go to the three counties and FDOT and claim poverty when you are now eligible for $265 million. The problem with that is a one-time expenditure, and so we could see that eventually that would run out. And that started to occur, and everybody identified it over at SFRTA, South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, which operates Tri-Rail. And so they restarted those discussions, and they were, as far as I know, because I'm not the executive director anymore, very productive discussions. However, on top of that came a double whammy in the last week of the legislative session, where suddenly, buried in a tax bill, the state had withdrawn a major funding source for Tri-Rail's, the statutory funds that Tri-Rail was to receive. And that's created even a bigger, more immediate problem. And of course, at that time, the three counties are toward the end of their budget cycles. So it was very difficult, if not impossible, for them to scramble and identify upwards of maybe $10 million apiece, in addition to the ongoing discussion about how to close the gap. So that's where we stand. I know that they're still engaged in those discussions, though.
Are Tri-Rail riders about to be stranded? Is there a threat it's going to go out of business and be derailed?
If nothing changes, yes. But,
And how many riders are we talking about?
So Tri-Rail has 15,000 riders a day.
All right.
And
you're one of them.
I am one of them. I wrote it to this podcast. 15 years going strong on Tri-Rail. But we're talking about, however, I'm what they call a choice rider. I own a car and I can get in a car. There's some people who really rely on Tri-Rail to get to work and to school. And by the way, by doing that enables them to become productive tax-paying citizens. There's always this assertion that, this is a big subsidy for people and a free ride for people, but that subsidy enables them to get to work or to get to school to earn their degrees so that they can participate in the system. So you have that, and you have, of course, people who can't drive a car. Maybe they're too young. We have hundreds of middle school and high school students every day, and as well as people who may have a disability or are too old to drive.
Right.
So Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, playing devil's advocate. Why should taxpayers in the other 64 counties be contributing to the expenses of Tri-Rail?
Well, of course, everyone contributes to the roadway network in this state. But, South Florida is a huge economic engine for the entire state. It's the economic engine, the largest economic engine for the entire state. And so it is worthwhile to get people to work into school. Now, the state's position, which, is not unreasonable, is that the three counties should do more. And I think that's where the discussion point is now, is for the three. And again, these numbers have been static in a piece of legislation that was adopted, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so that's really where the discussion lies, I think. And that's why I think it will eventually become resolved when the counties are able to come up with additional funding that will satisfy the state.
But the counties are under some additional pressure. You have, Governor DeSantis and some legislative leaders are talking about doing away with property taxes. We don't know what that would do to local and county governments. What happens if their tax system is completely changed for local and county governments? And then, of course, you have the Florida Doge that's come into Palm Beach County and looking to cut expenses there. It seems like there could be a lot of impacts on the bottom line for counties. And what impact does that have on Tri-Rail?
So, yes, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that is why it was unfortunate that the discussion had to be so sudden when the counties and the state, for that matter, could not take some of these conditions into account. That eventually, it's a question of priorities. And of course, in Palm Beach County, there are initiatives underway. The countywide transportation management plan and other initiatives to try to prioritize transportation and come up with a shared vision that we can agree on so that there can be additional funding for some of these priorities.
When Brightline started.
Brightline.
I'm sorry, Brightline started.
I don't work for them, but yeah, they appreciate me correcting.
when they started.
He's creating a new hybrid line. We may need it.
They had a limited number of stops. And then over the years, they kept adding more and more stops just within the Tri-County region of South Florida, never mind what they're going to do further north. Does that hurt Tri-Rail?
No, it's two different markets entirely. Brightline is not a commuter rail. They don't have that affordable ticket price that people can, where people can commute day in and day out. As you mentioned, they have additional cities, but they don't stop every 3 miles like Tri-Rail does, and they stop in downtown areas, not necessarily where people live in the neighborhoods like Tri-Rail does. So it's a supplement. It's not a competitor.
Boil it down. So I think it was $42 million. The state said we're going to reduce our share to you from state funds around $15 million. You three counties come up with the rest. Is that a bottom line right now of where we're trying to come up with that amount of money? And if we don't, when would it have to quit running?
The answer
You're
is
convinced it will.
That is how it is now postured. Of course, the county's position is that
but quickly, if they didn't, hypothetically,
I think they're talking about June of 2027.
Okay, so we've got some time to figure it out.
Correct. And I think the county's position is that $15 million doesn't really represent the state's true share of what it would cost for them to operate the South Florida rail corridor, because you have to remember that even if Tri-Rail went out of business tomorrow, FDOT is still obligated to maintain that track because they have a contract with CSX Freight. They have an agreement with Amtrak, which runs trains. So they have a certain base amount that they really need to bring to the table in order to keep that corridor operating.
Can I bring this up for our viewers, listeners across Florida and really anywhere? I can see some of them saying, great, that's a South Florida problem. Why should I care? Number one. Number two, whether it's Brightline, Tri-Rail, it does seem in this state, a lot of us say, why can't we ever seem to get mass transit right? You were just at a statewide conference in Tampa. So the question is, why do I care? Why does what's happening here, how does that translate to where I live in Florida? And what is it with mass transit here? We're all wedded to our cars. Kind of give us a little bit of that overview for the rest of our audience and listeners.
Well, of course, the traffic congestion problems that we experience down here in South Florida are replicated all over the state. I'm sure we've all been to Central Florida. My conference was in Tampa. That was the Florida Public Transportation Association annual conference. I spent a lot of time in the Florida Panhandle, and you can't drive down Route 30A without, spending all kinds of time in traffic. So it's a statewide problem. We were not developed as the northeastern cities were.
New York, affiliate.
Right. We were in many respects built for the automobile as a Sunbelt state. And so that's, a problem that we don't have that those compact urban areas. We have urban areas, but they're not necessarily compact to support more robust public transportation. Although I will tell you that the other commuter railroads and transit systems are having the same problem that SFRTA and Tri-Rail are having.
Across Florida?
No, across the country.
Well, Florida and the country.
Right. Yeah. But where their COVID relief funds have dried up. In those cases, they may not have caught up with their ridership coming out of the pandemic. And one of the reasons that we were able to do that so successfully in South Florida is because, for better or for worse, we are a service economy. But if you're working in Boston or Chicago or Los Angeles, a lot of those folks can work from home. And so they were not, you can't, run a restaurant or a hotel from your house. You have to get on as part of the service industry and use public transportation to get to your jobs. So they are confronting what they call this fiscal cliff just as well as we are down here in South Florida all over the country.
One of the things that's always struck me about our public transportation is we do an okay job going north and south, but east and west, and as we keep going further and further and further out west, all throughout Florida and east, if you're on the west coast of Florida, pretty soon I think Fort Myers and Palm Beach County will be touching each other.
I'm laughing because it's true.
Why do we have so much trouble figuring out how to handle east-west, which obviously, if you live in a far out west somewhere in the Tri-County area and you want to hop on the Tri-Rail, you've got a pretty long hike
to get
to Tri-Rail.
First, it's the development patterns of South Florida or Florida in general, which was a north-south coastal development pattern that then sprawled west, and therefore the infrastructure is north-south. So when we talk about
the same thing on the West Coast, and then now it's sprawling east from the West Coast towns.
So to my Florida Public Transportation Association conference, I did take Amtrak. I left from the Deerfield Beach station, which is about 5 minutes from my house, and took it to Tampa. So there you can do east-west. It was a very comfortable 4.5-hour ride, about the same time as it would have taken me to drive, except I could just sit and relax and, not have to stop to eat or go to the bathroom. So it was really a nice trip. Now, that I think they do one train in each direction a day. So that's a problem. But some of the infrastructure does exist to do east-west.
Is it too late to get it right? We've got 22 million people here. It is what it is. Of course, flip side of that, if we don't get mass transit done better with feeder lines to the Tri-Rails, to the Brightlines, which had its own issues, where will we be in 5, 10, 15 years if we don't start getting mass transit right? And is it too late to get it right?
Well, it's never too late. It is, as we discussed, a matter of cost. But, our roadways will continue to get clogged. Tri-Rail, it is said, takes the equivalent of upwards of 1 lane of traffic off of I-95 each and every day. That's a lane that really can't be duplicated because of the cost. So we have to get it right. Also, there is a question of people moving, not wanting to move here if it's too congested. You have a next generation of 20 and 30-something-year-olds for whom transportation is very important in where they spend their careers.
But candidly, do you see the political will in Tallahassee or in localities and the civic will to get it right?
Yes, the
And
will
if so, specifically how?
Well, the will is there. Certainly. I mean, nobody has ever, or I don't know about nobody, but most people understand the value of Tri-Rail for economic development, for the environment, for convenience, for any number of benefits. As these concerns rise, as the roads become more and more and more congested, as this becomes a priority for this next generation of folks who are our future down here in South Florida, then it becomes a higher priority. That's just how the politics works.
You use the word future, so I'm going to be futuristic here for a moment. Suppose 10 years from now, we had a preponderance of driverless cars. What does that do to trains?
Yes, I don't know if automated vehicles will be operating in that kind of robust fashion in 10 years, but it's a good question. The advent of technology, whether it's autonomous vehicles or, frankly, using AI to run traffic more smoothly. And there are companies like No Traffic out there that are implementing these solutions around the country. They have some pilot programs down here in South Florida, where they are able to make traffic flow more conveniently. So that's fine too. Where it leaves transit, you're always going to have those folks who either can't afford to use a car or are unable to use a car because of their age or a disability. And so there will always be a demand for it, I believe.
But you do think the age of the Jetsons may be coming.
I don't know if I'll be around for that. But
When you see Brian flying over your head in his car, you'll know.
I'm more of a Flintstones guy.
Barney and Fred. But to Brian's point about future options, and then we'll kind of bring it back to Tri-Rail. I mean, it's a great point. And if you see more remote work, this constant clamor about the need for more remote work or the demand among many, I mean, that could help be some kind of pressure valve release. But you're saying even with all that, even with that future vision, you've got to have this, you've got to have it here, you've got to have it around Florida.
And especially, as mentioned, we're a service economy. And so
hard to do that from the house.
Yes, it really requires people to be able to get to their jobs. And so there will be that demand. And, we funded it to this point, and Tri-Rail has expanded service. As I said, it remains popular. Ridership is growing. So now it's a question of prioritizing that appropriately with funding.
I mean, we're sort of running out of ways of expanding I-95. So, I mean, so at some point, traffic is already pretty much stopped during rush hours all throughout Florida, not just South Florida. So does that help Tri-Rail?
Yes. I mean, ultimately, FDOT, and if you talk to their local officials, I mean, they're all about mobility. And, in the end, that is their responsibility, is to provide increased mobility for not only our residents, but our all-important tourist industry. Tri-Rail connects to the 3 international airports, and that's been a very successful part of their service, both for the convenience of folks like us who now have options maybe to board a flight in Miami International Airport that we wouldn't otherwise have, although you should always go to Palm Beach International first. But beyond that, the tourists who come here, who, of course, spend gazillions of dollars in our economy, who are used to having this kind of transportation.
Would Tri-Rail have been more successful had it some years ago been going into the Treasure Coast?
Oh, I don't know about the Treasure Coast. Usually the question is, would it have been more successful to be running on the FEC Eastern tracks, which was, before my time, but an option at that time that was foregone for reasons that I don't recall because I wasn't involved. But no, it's all, as we discussed, all about density of population. So the Treasure Coast simply is not as densely developed, especially back then, to really support it. It's popular and successful here in South Florida.
Well, some people might argue, though, that the lack of affordable housing is creating more workers moving to the Treasure Coast. And I believe not long ago they were talking about having a metro bus nonstop from, I think it was Port St. Lucie to downtown West Palm, just to move workers. So, which kind of gets me to my Tri-Rail question.
And so now there could be that possibility. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I argue that right now, Tri-Rail is part of the affordable housing solution because you can work in Boca Raton, let's say, where you might not be able to afford to live, but live in Opelika or some other more affordable community and be able to ride Tri-Rail to a good paying job from a more affordable neighborhood within the South Florida area. So it is very much a part of the affordable housing solution.
Just one of the complaints I hear to Brian's earlier question, though, how much are we falling behind on the feeder systems to get us to the Tri-Rails if you live way out? Oftentimes people say, listen, I would get on the rail, but I don't have a convenient way to get to it, whether that's in Miami, the jitneys, or up here, smaller buses and the like. How much are we falling behind, and where's the funding for that in political will?
It's a great question. The first and last mile, which is what you're referring to, is an issue for transportation.
So does any of this matter if we don't get that right?
No, I mean, Tri-Rail works on a daily basis with Palm-Tran, with Broward County Transportation, with Miami-Dade Transit, Broward Transit, by the way. And also had a fairly good Uber-Lyft program to get people from the stations to their house. That, unfortunately, has had to be cut back with the different budgetary pressures, but that should really be expanded. At one point, we actually had a fixed route bus system. You may recall a type of a jitney or a smaller bus but those they went by the wayside during the pandemic when ridership just cratered and the private sector provider just couldn't afford to do that. Maybe someday, that could be brought back. But with the Uber Lyft, really, that's a wonderful customized solution that, if there was funding, could be a real asset to solving that.
So how close is Tri-Rail to getting legislative support for additional funding?
Well, again, I'm not running the show anymore. However, I do monitor closely, and still I think the current executive director is doing a terrific job in trying to salvage all of this. And what they say is that they have had discussions with the Speaker of the House, who is from Miami-Dade County, so is very familiar with the system. And really what occurred at the end of that session that I described may not have even been intentional. There are a lot of theories as to what happened, but that they were looking for a funding source to fund another project, and so that source was implicated. But he is definitely committed in a future legislative session, in the next legislative session, to seek to correct the issue. But of course, it takes two houses of the legislature and then the governor.
Bottom line, you think Tri-Rail will keep running? We'll find a way. We've got time to figure it out. Is that fair?
It's fair, and because I'm an optimist. On the other hand, it's hard. It's hard to see that clear path, but everyone seems to be working toward some kind of a pathway so that it continues to be.
What did you said on your trip up here? Tri-Rail riders were coming up to you. They recognized you as a Tri-Rail guy. What were they saying to you when?
Yes, they still recognize me on Tri-Rail.
And what were they saying to you?
Oh, they're, it's always so interesting. You will have very conservative people, very liberal people, and they're all joined by wanting Tri-Rail. When I, explain the various issues, some of the more conservative people say, "Oh, well, maybe there is a role for government in funding this, since I use it all the time and it's very convenient and I can't drive." So, of course, the ridership, is desperate to have this continue. And I'm sure there'll be, and Tri-Rail SFRTA has already started to mobilize that ridership on social media and elsewhere to really create a groundswell of support for it.
I'm predicting in 10 years, your driverless cars will be that feeder option to more people to the rail lines. And we will sit back and say, when you talked about driverless cars, and I'm only half kidding, because that may well end up being taking high tech to put it on old-fashioned rail. There's discussions about that around the country. So remember that Brian was there first with that.
We'll let him have the first ride.
Final quick thought before we let you go.
Oh, final quick thought. But you're so good at asking me questions.
Well, your takeaways. You're optimistic, but we can't take our eye off the issues both here and statewide.
Correct. I mean, like any other issue, it's going to require public pressure. It's as simple as that. And we're going to have to really galvanize the public pressure to demonstrate the value of Tri-Rail. And yes, railroads are expensive, but they, as I mentioned at the very beginning, if you can get thousands of people to work in a school every day so that they can be themselves productive tax-paying citizens, then it makes it a worthwhile endeavor, and it's not some kind of black hole that doesn't have that kind of economic benefit in the end.
Steve Abrams, LSN Partners, transportation advocate, former Tri-Rail executive director, former Palm Beach County commissioner, wearing a lot of hats, staying busy. We appreciate you. We're not going to make you late for your next Tri-Rail, are we? Appreciate you being our guest.
I would have jumped off with a chair.
Naturally. Thank you very much for being our guest.
My pleasure.
Well, Michael, I guess it's been a bitter period of time for you.
How so, dear sir?
Well, I understand that your Gators were playing against the University of South Florida recently.
Yes, another great academic institution.
Yeah,
I love them both.
How'd that go?
It's about the academics at my alma mater, the University of Florida. And football, of course, is a nice side pursuit. Is it football season?
Was there a score that you remember?
Why do we have to be so about numbers?
I understand that the University of South Florida
won the game, yes.
Won the game big.
I was less than thrilled.
Am I incorrect?
I was
big?
less.
Big,
I
right?
would not say big.
It was big.
It was a couple of points.
I think it was a lot of points.
And may I ask, did you watch the game?
No.
Yeah, not a big football guy. We're in a bit of a drought.
But I am a University of South Florida guy, so
sure.
Go Bulls.
I have a feeling that this season you'll be a fan of whoever the University of Florida is playing. And
well, especially if it's the Gators.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you for the moral support. Yes, it's an interesting football season to start.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
The fact that you're supportive of me not at every step of the way means more than I can possibly put into words or even should, even in a podcast setting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts that are not about the travails of my football team right now?
Well, my biggest closing thought is I'm really very grateful to the people who have reached out to us and told us how much they've enjoyed this podcast. It's really been terrific. I'm very grateful to the folks at Comar who have done a great job of producing this for us. The video and the audio is just terrific, and they do a wonderful job. And I'm encouraging people to keep watching, tell your friends, and subscribe.
We talk about a lot of times, Brian. I mean, we've had everybody from transportation experts to upcoming musician and another musician upcoming, and we've had rocket engineers. We've had newsmakers, from politicians. I mean, you name it. We have a wide array of guests on Top of Mind Florida. We think and are very proud that it fills a space for good questions. We call it headlines, hard questions, and humor. Exactly. And there's a place for all of that. And we'd like to hope that we'll fill that in your week, and love being alongside this guy. It's been many years. His football teams, and we'll discuss that off air. But besides that, take it away and close it out, my friend.
Well, we've had a wonderful time, and thank you for watching and listening.